back to the Ed Morrissey Show. Today is Thursday, November 12th, 2015. Great to be back with you. Great to have you on hand. Just less than 48 hours after the last Republican debate. As soon as Duane Generalissimo Patterson calls in, we'll start talking about the debates. But I want to thank everybody who's in the chat room right now, and including Cranky T-Rex, who reminded me that the URL I've been using for the chat room ever since I had to reload my computer was the incorrect one. It was the one we stopped using 2 years ago, which is the reason why I couldn't use it to get into chat. I'd been logging in through the Ustream interface, which is fine, but it's not as fun as Cranky T-Rex's interface, and I was really missing it, so I mentioned it, and Duke of the Dance reminded me, yes, we changed that 2 years ago. Where have you been? So now I'm working it off of the page here, and just want to make sure that we are not. I don't want to be double streaming my show here, because that page also has the live show playing through it, and I don't want to necessarily want to drag that through. We're waiting for Duane to call in, so as soon as he calls in, we can start chatting. But we can also take some questions. We're actually already seeing questions here in the chat room. One from my sister's brother, and if you have a question, you can always just put the Q : space and your question up in the chat room, and it will pop up and show that to me. So I will see that as a event on my screen. And the question that my sister's brother has: have or will Trump's poll numbers dip after this debate? As far as I know, Duane's calling in now. So actually we have Duane Generalissimo Patterson on the line with us now. Welcome back.
Dear Skype, in the future, when I really want to log in and call someone, can you please not improve my experience until a time when it is more convenient? Signed, everybody.
Yeah, signed everybody in the whole entire universe. Thank you very much. Duane Generalissimo Patterson of the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show.
I'm sorry I'm late.
You're fine. Don't worry about it. Hey, I actually had some fun with Duane during the debate.
Yeah, I bet you did.
No, remember, I don't know.
Did
you see the tweet I sent out?
Yes.
They were trying to close out and go to a commercial break, and the moderators completely missed their bumper music. I mean, I think it was Rand Paul. It was just talking right through the bumper music, and finally they ran out, and then they said, oh, okay, well, I think we're going to take a break now. And I said,
you and I have had legendary conversations about when breaks were stepped on.
Yes, yes, we have. And our good friend Mitch Berg as well. When back in the early days of the NARN,
our good friend 5 Second Mitch.
5 Second Mitch.
People have no idea what 5 Second Mitch means.
I think some of the people here have heard the story, but basically, we were doing a show. This is, I think it was a Veterans Day show. I think it was.
No. You forget what it was.
What was it?
It was Pearl Harbor Day.
It was Pearl Harbor Day.
It was Pearl Harbor. It was December 7th. I don't remember which year, but it was Pearl Harbor Day.
Oh, it had to be 2005 or 2006
something like
at
that.
the latest.
And so Mitch is just doing soft shoe, and he's taking calls from people that were actually alive and were around at Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, which was great, by the way.
Which was fine.
Yeah.
And God bless some old gal that calls in who was there that day, a day which will live in infamy, and he goes to that call not before the break starts, but you see there's 40 seconds of music that kind of creeps and whispers in your ear and gradually swells and swells and swells until it's deafening, saying get out.
That's the bumper music. Yes. So
he already hears the music starting to creep up, and he says, let's go to a phone call, let's talk to Midge and wherever she was at. And Midge is like 95 years old.
I think her name was Nancy. I think I remember her name being Nancy. Yeah.
So it could be. And she wasn't exactly the spryest 95-year-old you'd ever heard. And not that I would expect a 95-year-old to be spry, but, they elderly folks, I'm not anti-elderly. Don't write, don't email. I don't want to see it. Elderly folks on the radio, typically, if you're going to talk to them, they have a lot to say, but they need a long runway to get that plane off the ground. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They need a long runway. You don't go to the call with 20 seconds to the end of the hour. Not just the end of a break to hold them over a break, but the end of an hour.
It's the hour, yeah.
Well, the music starts playing. He goes to this person. He says, "Oh, so you have a story about Pearl Harbor because you were there. You got 5 seconds. Go."
And this poor woman's going,
sorry, out of time. Click.
And so we go into the break, and again, this is the top of the hour break, so it's a little longer break. It's about 7 minutes long because we had another hour to go, at least one more hour to go. And Duane gets on the line and tells Mitch, you could have held her over for the first segment of the next hour. It was a little late for that, actually, at that point in time, but oh my gosh.
Is everything.
Is everything. That's right. Timing is everything. Knowing your bumpers is everything. All right. Well, that was one of the more fun things. I tweeted out about how, Duane would be shouting in my ear if I'd missed a bumper that badly during a show.
Oh, I don't shout necessarily.
If I was 2 minutes late getting out of a bumper, I think you'd be shouting at the other end, "It's time! It's time!"
There might have been a little bit of wry sarcasm and a little biting edge to what I had to say, perhaps.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've missed a bumper or two in radio. It's kind of funny too.
Everybody does.
Everybody does. It happens, but it's one of the things I try to be careful about. And so I was doing Relevant Radio on Monday, and guest hosting for Drew Mariani, and I was working with a guy that I haven't worked with very much before. I worked with him once, I think, back in April, and then Monday was the other day that I worked with him on. And so, I'm watching the clock, and, I even charted out, as I do. I mark down the outs and stuff like that. It's a little easier on Relevant Radio because the middle break is a soft break. There's only hard breaks at the top and bottom of the hour.
Right.
So I know when it's coming up, right? I'm panicking the guy, especially in the first hour. He's going, "You got 1 minute. You got 30 seconds. You got 20 seconds. 15 seconds, 10 seconds." And I'm like, I know I'm going to be hitting. I know when to hit this thing, but I could just hear. He's like, you got 10 seconds. You got 5 seconds. Okay. But that's what a producer does. That's what you're supposed to do. I thought it was kind of funny because he hadn't worked with me before, and he doesn't know if I know how to hit a break. So
right.
So
you've been trained on breaks.
I have been trained on breaks.
You are now signed off. You're allowed to do radio.
Yeah, I have. I can solo, kind of, sort of. I can solo. It's solo with the producer, except on my own show where there are no breaks.
Exactly.
So it's perfect. All right, but we do have a producer. Duane Patterson, of course, is a producer extraordinaire, and he was busy tweeting during this debate. And what was your impression with the Fox Business News debates, I should say, the dual debates?
Overall, I would say it was right up there as far as content-wise. We got into some real good stuff that night. It was for the most part a finely done debate. Is it a perfect debate? No, and it never will be with that many people on the stage. It can't.
When you have 8 people on the stage, the format just doesn't hold up very well.
If you've got 8 people on the stage or one of them is Donald Trump, you can never have a perfect debate.
But you know what? Actually, the first debate, he was pretty aggressive. The last few debates, he's actually been, for the most part, pretty passive.
Yeah, there's
Tuesday.
some head games that are going on between the campaigns. We read this morning that the Ben Carson camp was loaded for bear, laying in wait, expecting the hit from Donald Trump, waiting for the drive-by, and they apparently had their response all ready to go, ready to give, and he never attacked him. And so because he never attacked him, they couldn't respond the way they wanted to, and Carson couldn't go on the attack, sua sponte. He couldn't go on the attack by himself because that would have violated the whole meme of kind of what he's all about. So
and yet today he went after Trump today, or last night actually, in an interview that got published today. went after
there was
Trump.
right. There was a lot of people that expected this to be a complete free for all. Everybody and their mother was going to come at Marco Rubio. Well, he got some attacks here and there, but by and large, it was not the promised, 7-on-1. Let's get the little Ronnie Scrunt, pipsqueak while he's making a name for himself. Let's get him now. The Jeb Bush attack, sustained attack, that withering attack that we were going to see on Marco Rubio never really developed.
Allah Pundit had an interesting theory about that. I want to run it by you because I was tweeting about it during the debate. So where is this? When's this attack coming? Because Bush actually was attacking Hillary Clinton, which I think would have been a better strategy for him all the way along. And then Chris Christie kind of stole his thunder in the undercard debate. So
let's start there real quick, because the observation, there was two grand strategies, two absolute strategic tactical moves underway that were evident in the undercard debate.
You're absolutely right. Yep.
Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum, God bless them both. They both have, their folksy way or their way of handling their campaigns, but they were largely irrelevant when it came to the undercard. They had their moments. I don't think they did themselves any harm. I don't think they particularly did themselves any good. But the other two that were on the stage there were Chris Christie and Bobby Jindal, and they both had a plan, and they both didn't deviate from that plan all the way through. And you could see the two competing memes all the way through. And, whether or not it makes any difference in the long run, I have no idea. But one was sure a lot more appealing to the majority of people than the other. Bobby Jindal employed a shotgun strategy. And this shotgun strategy is, look, I'm the only one for this job because everybody else, including the moderators, the audience, the other panelists, the other side, Democrats, Republicans, all Congress people, all senators, everybody in the world except me sucks. That was his strategy, by and large.
Yeah. He was going after everybody. Christie specifically, but basically everybody else in the field. That was what Jindal's strategy was.
If at the diner this morning the waitress left the slice of toast in the toaster for 30 seconds too long, she would have been part of the attack too. He was going after everybody, and it looked and I liked Bobby Jindal. He is a very nice guy in person, and the times I've talked to him off air, he's one of the most charming guys you'll ever meet. He's got a lot of winsome qualities. This format, though, he doesn't seem to excel in, and he decided to make up for excelling by trying to draw attention to himself by starting opening fire and being feisty. And as much as I can see that being a winning strategy to try and get a name out there and attack any target somewhere and put enough mud on the wall that your name will get stuck there somehow, Chris Christie's attack was, look, say what you want about me, and if anybody baits me into trying to get into a fight to fight below my weight class, sorry for the pun, Governor Christie. Christie had one opponent in this debate, and it was nobody on that stage. It was Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Yeah.
And I think I saw the stat from, I don't remember where it was, Wall Street Journal. Somebody had the stat. Maybe it was ABC News. They said there was a Hillary Clinton reference in the undercard something like 48 times. She was mentioned in that debate.
Would not surprise me.
Huh?
Would not surprise me. Sounds about right.
40 of them by Governor Christie. And, my attitude is, I'm not saying Christie's my guy, but psst, dear other candidates, pick up on that meme. She's the one you got to beat. Make your case to the American people why you're the best one to beat her in the fall. That's what this primary should be about. Yeah, but
you know what? I don't think it's illegitimate to point out the differences that you have with other people on the stage.
Not at all.
And I think it was effectively done in the main debate by several different people. You had Rand Paul and Marco Rubio. Right. You had Ted Cruz and John Kasich, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what Jindal's problem was that he just kept harping on the same exact thing, and he kept doing it over and over and over again. And even when the question was about something different, he would say, well, let me just come back to, okay, the first 3 times you said it, people heard it. Now move on to a different attack line. If you still want to attack, be more specific, attack on the question that's being asked. And I think Jindal overplayed that hand, frankly. I think Jindal overplayed that hand.
Severely overplayed that hand. And again, I'm not
saying...
And
I like Bobby Jindal. I do. I like Bobby Jindal.
Exactly.
And I think he's got a point on some of this, too.
I'm doing this just on analysis of just...
Yeah, exactly.
As a wonk, and as you and I follow this stuff, every day, I don't think he was as effective as he could have been. I get the strategy, but there is a way to play that strategy where you're a little bit more winsome in how you do it. He came across... In fact, if it weren't for one other candidate who there's no truth to the rumor that flowers were sent from the Jindal camp to this other camp for taking the gold medal for the most obnoxious candidate of the night between the 2 debates, it would have gone to Bobby Jindal. Sadly, he took the silver for the most obnoxious of the night, because I think it's fair to say that John Kasich may have set a new bar for how obnoxious one can be on a big stage. I think Frank Luntz, in the entire history of a Frank Luntz focus poll, has never seen a number. I mean, we're talking global cooling records that were set here for the amount of warmth that people had for Governor Kasich after his performance. And I think that would have been reserved overall for Jindal if it would not have been for being upstaged a little bit later on. Christie, now, there was some policy issues that Jindal actually scored points on, and Christie didn't really have a good answer for.
No, and especially in the spending issue, which I think Jindal actually is right on.
I totally agree, but it got lost in the, oh my God, all right already, I get it. Now, let's talk about how you're going to beat Hillary Clinton. Let's talk about what you're going to do here. Let's talk about this. And he didn't want to get off the main meme of, I've got to come up here and stick a shiv in everybody. Well, okay, I get that. That's part of the game. That's part of how this process goes. Honestly, to me, I know who I like. I know who I don't like on the stage. I know which policies I like. I know what I agree and disagree with.
Right.
I want to know who's got the best strategy for how they're going to go at Hillary Clinton and the megalopolis media that is going to have her back all the way along. Who's going to be the best one to fight a campaign, not just against Hillary, but against the entire support structure she has built around her in the MSM Democratic Party complex?
I think it's one thing I want to know. But I also do want to know what these candidates are going to do to put together a conservative agenda and apply a conservative agenda. So I think Jindal had a point. It's just that he hammered it so often that he obliterated it.
Which is kind of interesting, because in previous debates, that's kind of what the knock on Christie was. He had a good moment in almost every debate where he knew when to inject himself and say, come on, what the hell are we doing here? But then he belabored the point and didn't know his exit point of when to do that.
Yes.
He was much better at that this debate, because Jindal, by comparison, was like the person that wouldn't leave it alone. And you're like, okay, put a sock in it already. I get it. Next point. Let's go into something else.
Well, going on to something else. Okay, so you thought Christie probably came out best in the first undercard.
Certainly
debate.
On style points.
I think you did too. Yeah.
You can make the case that Jindal won on points, but I think it's going to be largely lost on people if they just happen to be tuning in saying, okay, let's see what this is all about. They're going to, the presentation was off-putting enough that I think the points that he scores is going to be lost.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think Jindal did, I think he did all right.
He did all right.
I think he stood out, at least from the other. I mean, he and Christie stood out. Santorum and Huckabee did fine, but they didn't stand out. They're not going anywhere.
The only memorable line I can even remember Mike Huckabee saying was when he, what word was it? There was
Janet Yellen.
Janet Yellen.
Janet Yellen. Yeah.
And so he thought, I'll just be folksy and throw my wife under the bus. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, it was not a great moment. I mean, I think he thought it was funnier than it was. You throw yourself under the bus, you don't throw your wife under the bus. Come on.
Again, when you've got a party that's already fighting a narrative where they're going to be going up against the first woman candidate, and you've already got the whole war on women thing that you're going to have to go at some point, and you go out there and you throw your wife under the bus. Okay, I get it. Yuck, yuck, joke. Honestly, is that really what you want? Is that really the way to win people over?
No. No, it's not. No. And frankly, the only one I think on that undercard stage who even has a shot at winning anybody over is Chris Christie.
Of course.
Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum, old news.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
And Bobby Jindal, the thing is, you've talked to Bobby Jindal. I've talked to Bobby Jindal. He is a funny, charming guy. And for some reason that just doesn't come out in this format. He is so focused on sort of being a wonkish
He's got
attack
too many
dog.
people in his head now. The problem with Bobby Jindal is he races through his thoughts. He is scary smart.
He is.
Okay?
He's
not a
guy.
dummy.
He's a brilliant guy.
He's off the charts smart. The problem is time inside Bobby Jindal is going about 2.5 times normal speed with the rest of us. Okay?
Yep.
And so he's got all these things he wants to do. And while he's giving an answer on education policy, which he's spent a lot of time talking about, in his head, while he is giving this response, his brain is already thinking about 4 chess moves down the road.
Right.
That's kind of how his brain works. But he is just always up here and racing. And he knows he's got a problem with that because he so races his rhetoric that it's hard for people to actually sit there and absorb what he's saying because it's a run on, a paragraph is a run-on sentence.
Yep.
So he knows he's got a problem with that. So he's got consultants in his head trying to slow him down there. He's got consultants trying to advise him on this. And you can see him, okay, I've got to do this new strategy, and he's losing the war of how do I just be me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think that's right.
That's just an observation. I think he's losing the war of how to be me and how to be his own best critic. To me, the best advice he could have is to fire every consultant. Number 1. Number 2, take his last debate performance, take his last 4 radio interviews, and go into a quiet room, turn out the lights, close the door, all other distractions, put headphones on, and force yourself to listen to yourself 3 times. Listen to how you're pacing, how you did everything. Listen to it yourself for 3 times. Don't hire somebody else to tell you what you need to do different. I tell this to radio hosts. I tell this to people that are trying to learn how to do the craft of radio. This is the best coach that he could ever have is already within him. All he needs to do is listen to himself, listen to his own cadence, which I guarantee you he hasn't done. And if you force yourself with no other distractions, you don't have your mom there to tell you how great you're doing, I don't care about that. You're listening to yourself critically to hear the sound of your own voice. And if it sounds like it's racing to you, you're going to correct it. If you're stammering too much, you'll correct a lot of it, believe it or not. You'll hear how you phrase things, and you're going to go, why did I say it that way? That's not the way to say it. I should have said it this way. You force yourself to do that. It's painful as all hell to do because nobody likes to sit there and listen to themselves because they sound funny in their own ears. But if you force yourself to go through that process, he will be a much better communicator. I promise you he would, but I know he's not doing that because he's got too many consultants around him. Yeah. That's just my observation.
No, I think you're right. I think that's exactly correct. He's all right. So enough on that because the undercard was really not going to matter all that much. The main event was interesting for a couple of reasons, I thought. First off, this was the first time that you had more than one candidate really kind of going after Trump. You had Kasich, which we all knew was going to happen, but you also had Carly Fiorina and Jeb Bush going off on Trump on foreign policy. And in both cases, Trump's response was, well, especially the first response, was really arrogant. I don't need to hear from John Kasich. Well, this is the debate, and that's what you're supposed to be doing there. The second one, he complained about Fiorina interrupting him.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this is, again, it's a debate. And there was more than one person interrupting him, but he went after Fiorina for some reason. But he didn't really have an answer for it. And honestly, Duane, my impression of this, and I know that people are going to say, well, you don't like Trump much anyway. He's not my favorite candidate on the stage. But he was out of his league for most of this, which was surprising because this was this was an economic policy debate.
Did not Rand Paul catch him in a little bit of a what the hell am I doing here moment on TPP?
On TPP, yeah. He was going on and on about China and TPP, and Rand Paul had to remind him, China's not part of TPP.
Excuse me, Donald. China's not part of TPP.
Yeah. I mean, he just seemed out of his depth. I mean, the last question he got before his close was on corporate inversion. And in that case, he actually had a really good answer. But
he knows that, yeah.
Well, I mean, this is economic policy. This is something you would think he would have, first off, because of who he is and what he's done with his life. But secondly, studied up on, because this is going to be one of his big, huge policy areas.
My biggest problem with Trump is he and Rand Paul are fighting to see who can be more isolationist than the other one. And I know it kind of sounds funny to say, but if you actually listen to what Trump's vision is he wants to. The only differentiation between he and Rand Paul is Paul doesn't want to build up the military. He kind of likes to have it the way it is, and he doesn't think we need. If we're just going to kind of withdraw, we don't need a big military. They're already in too many places anyway. We should just bring them home and kind of regroup. Trump's attitude is, no, let's go ahead and spend money and build up the military, but then I'm just never going to use it. Because if we just build up the military and I just bluster, everybody's just going to say, oh, they got the best military in the world. Why are we going to make any noise? Why are we going to make any trouble? And that'll be the end of it. I'll never have to use it. Okay, well, that's fine in theory, but if you have to use it, and if you already know that you're facing a bunch of adversaries that are being provocative, you better go in knowing that you're probably going to have to use it at some point because of the weakness of the guy that you're replacing. Trump doesn't seem to do that. He just thinks that, oh, we'll buy more planes, we'll buy this, we'll buy that, and everything will be huge again.
Huge.
Then everybody will just let us go.
And elegant, huge and elegant. It's gonna be elegant.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just on that either. I mean, it was on the immigration thing. Kasich challenged him on that, and I don't think that was very effective for Kasich to do because Kasich was terrible.
Kasich
easily the worst performance of the night. Kasich was easily, but Trump wasn't very good either. And I think Trump looked out of his depth most of the night. And the thing is that it's almost a fool's errand to say, well, this debate is going to have an impact on Donald Trump in that X. That's not Trump's draw. But at some point, some of this stuff is going to start percolating upwards. Now, today we had Ben Carson going, taking on Donald Trump's strength, immigration, by attacking the deportation forces that Donald Trump promised on Morning Joe yesterday morning.
Which honestly, is that going to happen in your lifetime, in my lifetime?
And why would conservatives want it to happen?
Is there ever going to be a will amongst the American people to start rounding people up?
No.
We didn't like that when they took out Elian Gonzalez, and that was kind of when the shoe was on the other foot. We conservatives were outraged at the time when that happened.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. The one thing that I think most conservatives can agree on, and this is why Hugh pushed back at the whole premise this morning on CNN. He was on with Allison Camerata, and Allison kept trying to pick at the scab, saying, "Oh, the immigration issue. See, it's going to tear the Republican Party apart." And he's like, "Nonsense. If you actually get the Republicans together, there are significant differences in what they're talking about and how they would get from point A to point B. But the bottom line is, virtually to a person, they would all put up a fence. And that way you kind of help control the flow coming into the border to begin with.
Yeah.
And then once you have the fence built and you've established a secure border, then you go through the people that are here. You got to deal with the visa overstays. You got to rework that program. You got to deal with the e-verify. You got to do some kind of an e-verify system so that there are real penalties on employers if they hire illegal help, and you make it so that it's verifiable. Flush everybody out of the shadows, and that way you kind of stop the magnet from coming here anyway. And then the people that are here, you start going through them and you say, okay, yeah, you got here illegally. Have you broken the law since you're here? Meaning, are you a 3-time felon? Are you doing drugs? Are you doing this? Or are you just sitting here on welfare? If so, well, maybe this is not the country for you. If you're doing what you can, and yeah, you came here illegally because your parents brought you here when you were 4 or 6 months old in some cases, but you've tried to assimilate and you're going to school and you're trying to make your way in the world, you're staying. I mean, unless you're Donald Trump, you're staying, right?
I'm not even sure Donald Trump really believes that.
I don't think he does either. That's what I'm saying is if you actually look at the metrics of what the Republicans think, build a fence, fix the parts of the processing, the e-verify and the visas.
And the visas, especially the visas, yeah.
Fix that problem, and once you fix that problem, then you start doing a case-by-case basis, and you deal with the people that are here.
Okay, so I mean, we've talked about
it's not that hard of a problem to fix.
We've talked about the policy. Let's talk. We've talked about the policy before, but what happens now that Carson's going after Trump on this? I mean, this is the first time that. I mean, Trump wasn't
going on offense, actually.
Carson's going on offense here. Trump has not done that with Carson. He's been content to go after Jeb Bush, and Marco Rubio, and Fiorina especially. But he hasn't gone after Carson. He's made a couple of comments, but nothing too. Not a deep commitment to going after Carson. But now Carson's coming after him. What happens? I'm just curious. What do you think is going to happen?
We're kind of in uncharted territory because Carson so far has been the winsome guy that's just going to say, hey, I'm going to be somebody. I'm going to be not a politician. I'm going to be somebody different. I'm just going to conduct myself the way everybody else would like to see themselves handled, and I'm not going to sit here and mix it up. All of a sudden now, after the week he had last week where media really kind of came at him, and a lot of it was kind of self-brought on to a degree. Now all of a sudden we're seeing a more fiery, sparky Ben Carson, and I don't know, frankly, how that's going to play. It's uncharted territory. We did see earlier this week, and I'm trying to remember which poll it was, but there was, I think Eric Erickson started to write this a little bit over at Red State, and he was citing a couple of polls that started to show in Iowa some migration of the evangelical vote from the Carson camp over to the Rubio camp. Not a lot, but just a subtle bleeding off of some evangelical support from Carson. And it's starting to, they're kind of looking for a new home, and they seem to be looking to land in Rubio's camp, which I thought was kind of interesting.
I would think Cruz.
I would have thought so too. And
big fight between them today on immigration too.
There was a big fight between them, and in fact, Cruz had some biblical reference when he was fighting back on the immigration issue, which I thought was interesting. There is a fluidity in the evangelical support that's going on right now, and it's kind of going between 3 different people. Rubio this week. You remember the Manhattan Declaration? The big Chuck Colson, Robbie George thing at Princeton, where all the egghead elite theologians of our time got together and did this proclamation of where Christians stand on things like marriage and other things.
Yes,
you remember that a few years ago?
I do. Yes.
One of the head guys behind that declaration was a guy named Eric Tietzel, and Marco Rubio just hired him this week, and that was so below the surface of everybody else covering politics that it just got lost on everybody. In evangelical circles, that was really big. That's not like landing a Jim Dobson endorsement, but that's landing a really well liked, well-established, well-respected theological scholar in evangelical circles. And he landed in Rubio's camp this week, and it was really interesting. So, I don't know how it's going to play long term, but there seems to be a little bit of a movement.
Well, and again, I think you're starting to see people taking the race a little bit more seriously now, right? I mean, I think that's the sort of the meta lesson that we're seeing out of this. You've got Cruz and Rubio starting to push back against each other. You've got Carson going after Trump at least, and I'm sure it won't be long until Trump goes after Carson. That's your two top tiers. And they had been leaving each other alone until now. But that's your two top tiers. So I think Thanksgiving rolling around, 4 debates in, I think that Carson felt the need to shake things up. Or to be honest with you, with Carson, it might just be that he got sick and tired of hearing Trump talk this way about immigration, and the deportation forces was just sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, and he decided he needed to say something about it. And that's kind of Carson's MO. I mean, I think he's operating off of his own, he's marching to his own drummer there. But I think that this is the primary group taking it more seriously and deciding that it's not just good enough to ride around in the first tier and second tier, but that you have to start trying to win this thing. And everybody's going to start jockeying around for that. Yep, we lost you. Wiggle the cord.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, sorry. So a few questions that come out of this. Number one, at some point, now that we're into the holiday season, and I say this, knowing that Hugh's going to be part of the next debate, which is a week before Christmas,
December 15th,
right in Vegas at the Venetian.
I will be there.
I will be there. You're going to be there?
I will be there. Yeah, they're going to be they're going to be flying me in there, so I'll be. They said that we'd each be covering at least one of these things.
Well, there you go. So that's going to be a fun one to cover.
Yeah, it will be a fun one to cover, and the Venetian's great. I've been.
Venetian's a great place.
That's Adelson's.
Oh yes, it is. That's home away from home. Right. If you're going to go to Vegas, you go to Shelley's place.
You go to Shelley Adelson's place. But I mean, it's interesting because Adelson, of course, is a big, huge donor in Republican politics, and also, by the way, the reason why everybody likes to stay at the Venetian is because it's the only non-union casino in the Strip.
Yes,
and the Palazzo, because it's a dual resort.
Well, yeah, it's basically
it's the same thing.
Hotels, yeah. Right? They're connected by basically a city.
Yes.
So the question is, do we enter a period now between now and the first of the year? And I don't know when that period starts, but are we in an election cycle where all conventions go out the window, or are we in a convention cycle where there's going to be a period of time where the holidays trump everything and everything's kind of frozen in place regardless of what happens to the debate between, the week of Thanksgiving week and the week after New Year's?
Well, I can tell you what it was like.
Is that a frozen period, or is the
no?
Next
I don't think so. I don't think so, because I mean, think of what happened in the last 2 cycles. In the Republican cycle last time, there was a lot of motion going on between Thanksgiving and the 1st of January. I mean, there was a whole couple of bubbles that went up and down during that period of time. So no, I mean, I think.
Oh yeah, we were dealing with Herman Cain.
I think the Perry bubble had already popped by this point in time. But
Yes.
Herman Cain went up and down. Newt Gingrich went up and down during that period of time. And then Rick Santorum emerged in Iowa and basically caught the last non-Romney bubble in the thing. Now, 2 cycles ago, 8 years ago, don't forget that this is that period of time between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
This is where McCain just started to come back to life.
Well, that McCain kind of started coming back to life in October. No, I was going to talk about the Democratic debates.
Oh, okay.
This was the point in time where Hillary really lost the election, because this was, I believe it was either just before or just after Christmas, where they had that debate where in 120 seconds, Hillary Clinton did a 180 on driver's licenses for illegal immigrants. And I forget which direction she went in. All I know is that she started off in one position and she went to the exact opposite position within 2 minutes. And it blew up the Democratic race. I mean, it was already trending that way. There was other reasons why Obama was going to overtake Hillary, But that was a big late catalyst.
The main reason being, of course, that he was just a far superior candidate. He does run campaigns well.
I mean,
She's
in my
horrible.
book, I'm going to talk about that in my book too. People are still not cognizant of what exactly Obama did and why it was Obama doing it, not the DNC. And that has implications for 2016. But yes, he was a far superior candidate to Hillary Clinton. Still is, by the way, to this day, which is the reason why Debbie Wasserman Schultz is actually hiding the debates. Did you see this on Vox?
No.
Do you know when the Democrats are doing debates? I mean, they're only doing 6 of them, right?
When is the next one, by the way?
It's on a Saturday. The next 2 of them are on a Saturday. What's the lowest viewership day of the week for television? Saturdays. They're on Saturday nights. Both of these things are on Saturday nights when people are going out. Millennials are not hanging around the house on Saturday nights. And Vox has started to ask the question, and Nancy Smith at the Sunshine State News was writing about this a couple days ago, or maybe it was even yesterday, about the fact that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is doing this deliberately because of how Barack Obama was able to use the debates the last time to clobber Hillary Clinton. And I mean, they are deliberately scheduling these things on the worst possible days for people to watch them.
Well, but the thing is, there is no Barack Obama out there this time. Nobody's going to look at Bernie Sanders and call him a Barack Obama type.
She didn't know that when they were scheduling these things.
No, I understand that, but God bless him. Even Bernie Sanders has now decided, well, maybe those emails, maybe we should spend a little time talking about her damn emails, because the second he said that, his campaign ended.
Yep.
I mean, it just dried up. It ended. It's like, well, if you're not going to fight Hillary for the nomination, okay, what exactly are you doing up there again?
Yeah. It was a sad moment. All right, so briefly, let's go over who went up and who went down from not necessarily in the polls, because I don't know if it's going to impact the polls, but on the main debate on Tuesday, ups, downs, and how far. I'll start off with John Kasich. Down?
I think clearly. I mean, he tried to do the first 2 debates by not engaging on any personal attacks. All he wanted to do was say, here I am, I've done a good job in Ohio, and I'm a likable enough guy, everybody likes me, and so vote for me, here's my bio. That's kind of what his message was. And we've went from there to the John Kasich last night, where he was demanding everybody get off his lawn, but only after inviting everybody onto his lawn to begin with. And then once they're on his lawn, then he wants to yell at them to get off his lawn.
And that bailout question, just the worst.
With Ted Cruz?
The worst moment of any of the 4 debates. Apparently, John Kasich has still not heard of the FDIC.
Yeah, I know.
And Ted Cruz could have asked him about that. I mean, Ted Cruz kind of missed an opportunity there, but we have an FDIC for a reason.
He had a hanging curveball over the middle of the plate, and he took it. He was looking for a different pitch.
Yeah.
But still, just the way he phrased the answer, Governor Kasich did, it's a good thing there wasn't produce in being sold by concession workers in the stands, because he would have had tomatoes coming at him.
No kidding. Deservedly so. Terrible performance. All right. Jeb Bush.
There is the Team Jeb camp that came out and said, see, he stopped the bleeding.
Yeah. That's not a good thing, folks. Not 4 debates in. If that's your big takeaway from it, it really is time to pack it up. I actually thought he did better in debate 4.
He did, but he did better. Why, Ed?
Because he was so bad the last time.
He did better because the bar of expectations for him were like, you couldn't get under their limbo. You couldn't get under their limbo style if you tried. If you were double jointed, you couldn't get below that bar.
How low can you go?
And so the fact that he exceeded the bar of expectations, so therefore he did better than last time. Okay, yeah, and that's like that. Okay. Governor Bush, he was supposed to go in there and take it to Marco Rubio and go on offense. He tried to butt in a few times, and it was kind of odd and not really appealing how he tried to butt in. And then it kind of didn't work, and you could kind of see in his head he shifted strategy a little bit. And the big 2x4 he was going to bring up Marco, he never really did do.
No.
He had his moments, but
not against Marco though. I mean, he never even really referenced Marco. He stayed on point on Hillary, and I thought he did a pretty good job that way. But yeah, I mean, this is not a game changer by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
He didn't really have that much of an impact. Rand Paul, I thought actually did improve in the second half of the debate. The first half he
improved. He improved in the sense that he got Donald Trump on a gotcha moment. No question about it.
Well, I thought he and Rubio had a very good exchange for both of them. He represented the libertarian point of view on foreign policy and defense spending very well.
Right. And to me, I am a defense hawk in the sense that that's the one part of Rand Paul that I really, really dislike the most. That's the part of Rand Paul's policies that I disagree most strongly about. And the fact that Marco Rubio and Rand Paul summed up the two opposing viewpoints the way they did, to me, just because of my own personal bias, I like Rubio. I like I could stand a lot of the candidates up there. If it were Rand Paul that survives against Hillary, I'd hold my nose and vote for him, but he would be the one I'd be the most queasy about because I don't agree with his worldview. I don't agree with the way he looks at the world.
And as I said on Twitter at the time, Rubio got the best of the exchange, but that's because of the base. I mean, yes. Rubio's position is shared by about 80% of the Republican Party.
Yes.
Right?
And I just do not like that plank.
But I thought he presented it very well.
Plank well.
And
he
passionately
articulated his plank well.
Yeah.
He's just dead wrong.
Well, of course.
It's not the time to say...
But at least he woke up. I mean, let me give you my Rand Paul impersonation for most of these debates. He kind of sits back like this, and somebody asks him a question. Well, and then another question comes up. At least he was actually engaged. He was kind of leaning in, if you will, and passionate about it. I actually thought, even though he's wrong, it was a good moment for him in the debate. So I kind of gave him a thumbs up.
That's fine
On performance. All right,
I can agree with that.
All right, Fiorina,
she was standard stock Carly Fiorina. The reason she didn't stand out more and wasn't scored a winner necessarily more than anybody else is because we're now 4 debates in. Everybody else by now should have figured out how to do this thing and how to do this dance a little bit, and everybody else's game was a little bit better as well. So she's not going to have this I'm going to go up here and surge moment while everybody else is sitting there staring at their shoes, and that way I'm going to stand out. She did her standout moment, but so did everybody else. So it's kind of hard to outcrowd the rest of the field. So
yeah, I mean,
she did fine, but is she going to be the lone standout? No, because there's lots of people that did well last night.
I think she surprised people by doing well in the first 2 debates because just nobody's really seen much of Fiorina.
And now everybody expects her to do that.
Everybody expects her to do that. The expectation bar is high.
The opposite of Jeb Bush.
Exactly. So I don't think she's going to get a bump out of it. I thought she did very well, but she's not going to get a bump out of it.
Yeah,
all right.
Again, stock Carly.
All right.
She had I like her zero-based budgeting line. She employed that. That's part of her stump speech, and she employed that at a very good time last night or 2 nights ago.
All right, Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz gets better and better, doesn't he?
Actually, I mean, I don't know if he gets better and better. I mean, Ted Cruz is a hell of a debater. He was one of my 2 winners of the debate. Ted Cruz was one of my 2 winners.
He's standard Ted Cruz. He does well in these formats, and he does seem to get a little bit better. Here's my big question, and this has nothing to do with favorites or not favorites or whatever else. I go back to the who can best beat Hillary. And can Ted Cruz win the nomination of the Republican Party? Oh, absolutely. In fact, I would venture to say he's got a cleaner path to the nomination right now than Donald Trump does. I think
Possibly.
he's strong in Nevada. I think he's very strong in South Carolina.
He's strong in Iowa.
And he's gaining in Iowa.
Well, his organization has been in place in Iowa since March.
So what I'm saying is, it's a very real possibility that Ted Cruz has the funding, and he could come out of the first 4 states with 3 wins.
Possibly. Yeah,
it's very possible.
It's possible.
Could he win the nomination? Oh, absolutely, he could. Here's my question. There was a Netter poll this week, and I cannot remember which one it was, but I read this week where every candidate was measured based on favorable, unfavorable, not this person versus Hillary, just favorable, unfavorables. Yeah. Marco Rubio's got a 9-point favorability rating. Trump has got actually a he's fairly upside down in his favorable, unfavorable.
Has been for months. Yep.
Has been for months. Ben Carson is largely favorable.
I think he's actually the most favorable in the field.
I think he is. And Jeb Bush is almost the worst. But Ted Cruz is 12 points underwater, favorable, unfavorable amongst the general population.
Yeah, it's largely because of his sort of take no prisoners style in the Senate.
It is. Yeah. And see, that's my big question with Ted Cruz. Can he win the nomination? Absolutely. Can he win a general against Hillary Clinton? I hope so. I don't know that's the case, mainly because here's my biggest concern with Ted Cruz, and I'm not trying to cut his legs out from under him. I esteem the senator greatly. I worked as hard as I could to get him elected in Texas. I wish him nothing but success in the future. My biggest question with Ted Cruz is you've got the apparatus of the Republican Party. And I don't just mean Reince Priebus and the elites in Washington. I mean everything from bundlers, fundraisers, just the energy from the top down at all 50 state level. When John McCain was our party's nominee in 2008, and it became clear he won the nomination, the large percentage of people in the base in the party said, okay, it's going to be Grandpa versus Barack Obama. Okay, we're going to support the old guy. We're going to back him as best as we can. But our hearts weren't really in it, was it, Ed Morrissey?
Well,
I mean, we tried.
Yeah. I mean, part of that, too, is because John McCain had just spent the last few years doing his best to take off the base.
Get it. But what I'm saying is, you see where I'm going with this. The energy in the party of this is our guy. This is the guy we've been waiting for all the way along. This is who we want. We're gonna crawl through broken glass to make sure this guy gets what he wants against Barack Obama. Well, it didn't happen. 4 years later, now you got Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was easily the most qualified person to be president on that stage, on the national stage in 2012. He had the best resume, he had the best thing to bring to the table, except there was a chunk of the Republican base, and from top to bottom, the party was like, okay, Mitt won the nomination, we're going to help him, we're going to do what we can, but gall darn if he's not our favorite guy. And did we go all in emotionally, physically? Were we as a movement, as a conservative movement, were we all in to get Mitt Romney across that line? No. Now, lots of reasons why. I don't need to go rehash out 2012.
No, you don't, because you know what? Somebody's going to write a book about that. I wonder who it might be.
Someday, somehow, somebody's going to write a book.
Somebody's going to write a book about that. I wonder how that might be.
Ted Cruz gets the nomination. If anybody hates Ted Cruz in the United States Senate more than Senate Democrats, it would be, Ed Morrissey?
Senate Republicans?
Senate Republicans. So if Ted Cruz gets the nomination, will we support Ted Cruz? A lot of people in the base, absolutely. We will do what we can, and we will put our differences aside, and we will do everything we can to get Ted Cruz across the bar because we don't want Hillary Clinton. That said, will the entire establishment of the Republican Party, if Ted Cruz is a nominee, will they say, yeah, we're all in for Ted Cruz. We're gonna swallow everything we've ever said bad about him, everything we've thought about him in the past. As all goes,
Hey, I can fix that problem for you. I can fix that problem. You whisper in their ear. It means he won't be there next year.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I know. I get it. But I mean, let's just keep it focused on the debate. I thought he had a great debate.
He had a great debate.
All right, Marco Rubio, the guy I picked as the co-winner of the debate. Because Marco I really honestly could not draw a line between the two of them in the end.
Marco Rubio always does well in these types of formats because, one, he's smart, he reads up on the issues, and he doesn't get caught off guard. And he's very articulate. He's good on his feet. So he's got a lot of strengths going into this. I think he was doing a lot of dodging and feigning too because he knew going in he was a target. He had a big target on his back. And I think he thought he was going to get attacked from Bush a lot more, and it didn't come. And I think he may not have been maybe quite as punchy as he was in the last debate, only because he was like waiting for the hit so he could turn around and parry it. And when that debate didn't, or when that hit didn't come, he looked like he was a little more hesitant than he sometimes otherwise might have been, maybe. But we're talking just degrees of nuance here.
Yeah,
but overall, I think, again, when Marco Rubio on a national stage tells somebody like a Rand Paul, get out of here with this isolation crap. You can talk about expense, you can talk about costs, and you can do whatever you want about that, and we can have an honest disagreement about it. If you don't have a country, if you're not safe, it don't matter. The first thing we got to do is, and he starts channeling Reagan, and I mean, it's like I'm in my happy place at that point. He speaks. I see my worldview is the way Marco Rubio sees the world. Ted Cruz largely sees it that way. There's others on the stage that do, but Marco Rubio's, to me, thus far on foreign policy, is the one that most articulates where I happen to be personally. So I like that. I haven't endorsed, I won't endorse, and I will support to the death whoever this party comes out of the nomination with. But when Marco Rubio talks foreign policy, I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah, I think that was his best moment. Also talking about Dodd-Frank. He had great moments talking about Dodd-Frank, as did Ted Cruz as well. Both of them had great moments on Dodd-Frank.
Yep,
all right.
Agreed.
Donald Trump. On the debate.
Again, I'm not going to say anything bad about Donald, because if I say anything bad about Donald and it gets public, then all of a sudden I get drawn into a what storm. I don't care at this point. My attitude is Trump's got a lot of things he brings to the table: energy, entertainment, ratings, and he's got some issues of economics that I'm right there with. I think he's just winging it on foreign policy, and I think that's recklessly dangerous at this point. The TPP moment, I'm just like, oh my stars, he didn't just say that.
Yeah. I didn't think he had a very good debate.
I just don't. And to me, at some point,
I think he actually did damage to himself.
I think he did damage to himself when he did the drive-by at Carly Fiorina. He didn't like Carly Fiorina's interruptions, and so he interrupted himself to say, shut that broad up, won't you?
Yeah.
Again, I'm sure that makes his base really happy when Trump is Trump. But here's what the problem with Trump is right now is he's not going on offense as much as he did the last couple debates. And if he's not going around doing the political equivalent of "you're an idiot, you're fired, you're an idiot, you're fired," when the only moment you can remember Donald Trump saying is, "I built $1 billion company, I don't have to talk to losers like you, Governor Kasich." When that's his big takeaway, okay, we've heard that shtick before. I mean, at some point you become boring, don't you?
I think so, and I think he struggled, and I don't know if it's going to really impact the polling, but I do think it's going to start sticking to him.
I keep thinking at some point he can't defy gravity forever.
No.
I don't think he can. No. He seems to week after week, month after month, but
we'll see.
I don't think he can defy gravity forever.
We'll see, said the Zen Master. All right, final one, Ben Carson. Because this is sort of a Rorschach test when I ask people about this. How do you think that Ben Carson did in the debate?
I think he did better in the debate than he had done in previous debates. I think he had a better debate. I don't think you can talk about the debate with regards to Carson in a bubble, meaning you've got to take the week he's had in totality. And he's had probably the most interesting week of any of the 8 candidates. And I saw Carson on stage Tuesday night, and what I was still hearing resonate in my head was that Monday night press conference on CNN, or last Friday night press conference on CNN, where he was kind of flailing and going at the media. I've got real questions about Dr. Carson as far as temperament. I
actually thought he had a smart debate.
He did,
except for the answer on the Middle East, which was a disaster. But I mean, other than that, he laid low.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Well, no, I mean, honestly, he laid low. He didn't get caught up in any exchanges with. Nobody went after Ben Carson, and Ben Carson didn't go after anybody. This is a guy who's a front runner and has a front runner strategy. I honestly thought that Donald Trump would do the same thing, but he didn't, and I think it cost him. And I think Carson did all right.
He had a good debate. He didn't do anything bad, but I think with Carson, he's still trying to make up for the damage he did, or some might say he didn't do any damage. He's still riding the wave off of the media angst angle he had from last week. But there's still problems within the Carson camp right now that I don't think he's completely resolved yet with a lot of the American people. And again, you're seeing that in some of the migration of the evangelical support. You're seeing that in some softening of his numbers in Iowa, although he's still right there, but he's had some softening of some of the numbers. I don't know. I don't know how fluid the top 2 are, but I still think there's somewhat of a paper tiger quality to the top 2 in the party right now. I still do.
All right.
I think it's, when all is said and done, if I were to have to put money on it right now, I still think the final 2 is going to be between Cruz and Rubio.
I think you're right. I'm not sure, but I think you're right about that. And we'll see. We'll see. All right. I know we got to let you go because it's already 5 after 4.
Yeah, I know. I only had
2.
30 minutes today.
All right, what's coming up on tonight's Hugh Hewitt show? Give us the skinny.
Well, John Campbell's guest hosting today because Hugh's in Phoenix at a station gig, and then he's off to Chicago to do another station gig tomorrow. So Campbell's in today. But we're going to be talking to Mark Stein, James Lilacs, James Homan of the Washington Post, and David Drucker of the Examiner, and we've got all sorts of stuff to do.
This is great stuff. It's going to be a great show. It's going to come up in 55 minutes, and it'll be coming up at the Hughniverse, HUGHNIVERSE.com, the troll-free web surfing experience for Hugh Hewitt fans. I'm a member. Dwayne's a member. Y'all should be members. All y'all should be members. I have to use the proper plural. All y'all have to be members. But if you're not a member, shame on you. But if you're not a member, you can also tune in on the AM radio band. Dwayne, what should people do if they can't find it on the AM radio band?
Well, I think they ought to call Hillary Clinton because she's a tough old bird. She was going to join the Marines, you know.
That is one strategy. The other strategy would be to declare a portion of the AM radio band a safe space and then ask for some muscle to.
We didn't even get to that.
I know. We were so caught up in the debate we didn't even get a chance to talk about that. You know what? That's still going to be a story next week. You and I will be talking about that next week. I am absolutely sure of that. We got fascism right here in River City. I completely agree with you on that. By the way, my column today talks about that. About campus, come and see the violence inherent in campus progressivism. It's disgusting. As Trump said, I actually 100% agree with Trump on this particular point.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting.
Why every one of those Blinken students who got accepted to that college, and from my understanding, that college turns away more than applies. Right? I mean, they're not looking for more students to show up there. They have more people applying than are actually on campus. Right?
Yeah, you know what I would say? A football team that said we're going to boycott the rest of our schedule, I'd say congratulations, see you later. Your scholarships have been revoked. If you want to stick around, you can pay the tuition.
Right. That's exactly if
that's how you handle that. I mean,
they don't like their college experience.
Go someplace else.
That would love to go to that college. There are lots of people that would love to go to that college.
You don't resign. You tell people to get stuffed. And that was what Trump's point was today. Yep. And he's absolutely right about that. Yep. Resigning in the face of this just emboldens more of it.
They wanted a sacrificial head on a plate. The president of the college gave it to him because he wanted to save the revenue dollars and he wanted to try and stem this thing off. What his failed mistake was understanding that it was never about one job that they were after.
No.
They're fascists. They want control of everything.
Right, exactly. And that calling for muscle, that just comes with the par for the course. That woman should be in jail for inciting violence.
Why she is not incarcerated, one, or employed, two, why she's still employed is beyond me.
Drawing a state paycheck after trying to incite violence against somebody that was just trying to take pictures of public
I don't care what her apology said. That cannot be tolerated on a public campus. It can't be.
Yep.
For as intolerant as they are, I'm sorry. If I were a taxpayer in Missouri and part of my tax dollars were going to that college and that's what they're teaching kids, that's the attitude of their professors, I'm sorry. Get out.
Get out. Yeah, the Amityville Horror approach. Get out. Yep, absolutely. All right, Duane, we got to let you go, but thanks for being with us today. We will talk to you again next week when we'll keep you longer than you can actually stay. Again. It's a tradition now at the Ed Morrissey Show.
Kind of getting to be. See you guys.
See you later. Duane Giuliano Patterson, the Hugh Hewitt Show, has been my partner in crime and is going to get in lots of trouble with Hugh Hewitt, but that's all right. I don't care. I don't care. Doesn't make any difference to me. All right. I want to thank everybody for being with us. That's our show for today. I didn't line up another guest because I was doing a lot of running around today and trying to get some things squared away, and I just didn't have time to book in some other guests, so I thought we'd just go for an hour with Duane. And we went a little over an hour with Duane, which is always cool. Anyway, Tuesday we'll be back with Andrew Malcolm, of course. I think we're going to try to get Mark Scribner back from CEI. We tried to get Fred Smith on Tuesday, but lines got crossed. I think we're going to try to get Mark Scribner back on Tuesday to talk about revitalizing capitalism, because I think it's a fantastic topic. Gosh, we're going to probably talk more about this Mizzou, Yale, Ithaca stuff, this proto-fascism on campuses. This is a story that's not going away, and we've got to call it out for what it is. It's fascism. Calling for muscle just makes it really obvious, but it was fascism before Melissa Click started looking around for somebody to beat up a reporter who just wanted to be there to take pictures. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about that for a long time. If he had kids, Rush was saying, this is Barnacle Brothers that's relating this. Rush talked about that if he had kids, he would home teach them college courses rather than keep them at Mizzou. Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be paying for a Mizzou tuition. And I don't think the state legislature should pay for a Mizzou tuition as long as this nonsense is going on there. The first, they're going to name some interim president of the university. Let me tell you, if I was being hired there as the president of the university, the first thing I'd do would be to shut down the football program and say the football program does not run this university. And the next thing I do would be to fire teachers who were involved in that mess on public grounds, trying to deny access to the media, saying we respect and I would say we respect the First Amendment here, and any communications professor who doesn't understand the First Amendment needs to go find work someplace else. Because this is what you do when children act up. You don't reward them for it. You make it very clear that you're not going to put up with it. And by the way, the Mizzou would not miss their football team very much. They're 4-5 on the season, 1-5 in conference, so they're not going anywhere anyway. Tim Wolf should have just said, you want to boycott, feel free to boycott. It's not like anybody's watching you anyway. So we'll field the team with whoever wants to show up. We'll do walk-ons that week. Screw you. That's the message that you got to send. Screw you. And they didn't do that. And, yeah, I mean, it's nonsensical. She felt aggressed because the media was covering their protests, which usually you would expect people to want. You try to get the media out there to cover your protests. And as it turned out, when you talked to Tim Tye, he was actually fairly sympathetic to what the underlying issues were supposed to be in this thing, which is an issue with Tim Tye. Apparently, he still hasn't quite learned the lesson here. But be that as it may, he was he was a student journalist. He was performing a legitimate function in a public space. I would declare that there is no such thing as a safe space at the University of Missouri, and that the First Amendment will be respected in all corners of the university. Period. End of story. Anybody who doesn't like it can leave. Anybody who wants to protest can waste their time. Anybody who's not showing up to class will be expelled. Any athletic team that wants to boycott over this will be shut down. Their funding will be revoked, and we just simply won't have athletics at the University of Missouri anymore. We'll just cancel all the scholarships and kick everybody off the teams, and you can pay tuition if you want to stick around, or you can find someplace else to take your nonsense to. There are other people who want educations, and that's the people we're going to serve. Period. End of story. That's what you say to these people. That's what gets the point across. And that way you don't have the nonsense spreading to places like Michigan and Ithaca and the rest of this stuff. Until administrators start taking the role of adults and the role of doctors in the asylum, these places are going to continue to be asylums. They're going to continue to be nut houses, which is what Mizzou is this week. Anyway, that was a nice little rant. I had a little fun there. Clear the, get the blood pumping and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, on Tuesday, we'll be back at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Central, 1 on the left coast. I want to thank the folks in the chat room. Cranky T-Rex, of course, runs the chat room all the time. And now that I've got the right URL, I can get into the fun chat room. Yeah, that was a long story at the beginning of the show. Cranky T-Rex, of course, at crankytrex.blogspot.com. He's on Twitter at crankytrex. He also writes at buzzpo.com and occasionally at hotair.com. And we love that because he does a very fine job of writing at hotair.com. TR4A, my cousin Mike, handling the troll guns today, and Deadeye Mike there on the troll guns. Thanks for being in the chat room. And it's always great. And it's a clear case of cousinism because Mike is my cousin. But just the same, he's awfully good at it. So there you go. All right, let's play a little walking music here. As soon as I find my soundboard, there you go. Play a little walking music as we're heading on out. There's the music. All right, who else has been in the chat room? Let's take a look here. Don't forget to put your own URLs up in the chat room. We're all about shameless blog promotion here at the Ed Morrissey Show. Barnacle Brothers, Fausta from faustasblog.com, a great Western Hemisphere blog. I read her every single day, so should you. Quick note, I think Fausta will actually confirm for me that Cubans are Hispanics. Maybe we should CC Chris Matthews on that. That Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz are not Cuban nationals. What an embarrassment. What an embarrassment. All right. Wolf, Jeff Dunitz from jeffdunitz.com. TheLidblog.com, I think, is the other URL for the same site. JeffDunitz.com will take you there. He's on the Twitters at YidWithLid, so be sure to check that out. Juanito Cabrone, Mr. Fastbucks, one of the fabulous Tribbles. My sister's brother, Prairie Dog SD, Rick 2, T-Rand, Via Paso at the Ancestral Morrissey Manse. Hi, Mom. And, of course, the first mate behind me, keeping me on the straight and narrow. Like I said, don't forget, Tuesday we'll be back, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Central, 1 on the left coast with Andrew Malcolm and other guests. Until then, have a great weekend, folks, and don't miss a minute. The Ed Morrissey Show. We'll see you later.